Watch the entire clip for a special analysis of Dark Pulse versus Shadow Ball at the end of the video.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Pokebattler website. My name is Famous from FLW Videos, and today we are actually going to be talking about the updated Darkrai raid boss that is now a tier 6. There are going to be some different numbers. Some of the different Pokemon will remain in kind of the same order, but there is going to be a difference in like the number of feints, for example. So let's go ahead and jump into it. The first Pokemon that we have to talk about is the champ of all of these Pokemon, Machamp, in at the number 1 position. As far as its best moveset is concerned, you want to go with Counter and Dynamic Punch. Just because Darkrai is a pure Dark type Pokemon, it is weak to the Fighting type, so you're actually going to see a ton of Fighting type Pokemon. And then when we take a look at the actual ratings, we got a 5-star on the damage, a 3-star on the bulk, and then a 4-star on the consistency. So everything is looking good with Machamp. And then when we go ahead and take a look at the actual rankings at level 35, so for example, if you do not have this Pokemon fully powered up, this is what you would want to look at. You can see that it is the second best option at level 35. And then as far as people who want to try to low man these raids and you're curious as to just what you need, it's technically possible to do it with 3 people, but it is going to be extremely difficult to be able to do that. You could potentially do it with 4, but it's going to be very difficult once again. So I would at least go in with at least 5 people just to be safe, as long as you are completely powered up and then leveled up to like level 35, level 40. Into the second position, we've got Hariyama. So Hariyama is going to be a little bit beefier of the option as opposed to Machamp, which could be a good thing to do since it is tier 6. But anyways, when we talk about the moveset, we've got Counter, Dynamic Punch, and then as far as the ratings are concerned, we do have a 5-star on the damage. We have a 3-star on the bulk, and it does drop down 1 in the consistency as compared to Machamp. But as far as its overall rankings at level 35, still looking really solid. It actually has an overall ranking of 3rd at level 35, so that's definitely good. You're not necessarily going to have to worry about any moveset in particular. You've got a lot of neutral situations, which is definitely going to play into Hariyama's favor. And at the number 3 position, this is actually going to be the first glass cannon I would consider on this list. We've got Breloom in at the number 3 position. So for Breloom, you're going to want to go with Counter, and then of course Dynamic Punch. But when you check this out, as far as the ratings are concerned, you're going to see where that glass cannon kind of kicks in. We got a 5-star on the damage, a 1-star on the bulk, and then a 1-star on the consistency. So I would leave your Brelooms at home. As far as the movesets are concerned, though, we are seeing some fairly good matchups. So even in this case, with it being a glass cannon, and then of course not even having any movesets that are going to be super effective against it, it just goes down. It's just a little too glassy in this particular scenario. So I would personally opt out of it. At the rank 35, you have overall ranking of 6 at level 35, so that's not too bad, but you do have some better options. In at the 4th position, we have our first non-fighting type Pokemon, and that is Togekiss. So Togekiss is going to get some very solid ratings. It is a decent Pokemon, one that you can just throw in there and just know it's probably going to do pretty good. You got a 5-star on the damage, a 5-star on the bulk, and then a 4-star on the consistency. So this is the tank of the group that we have talked about. As far as its ranking at level 35, it actually moves up in the rankings at level 35, pulling out an overall ranking of 1st in that case. As far as the defenses are concerned, you do have a lot of resistances going on with it, and then a neutral situation. So I honestly like Togekiss in this situation. I think it's going to be one that people don't necessarily think about as much. Up next is Toxicroak. So Toxicroak is going to pull in the number 5 position, a little bit more on the glassy side, but not as glassy as something like a Breloom. Its ideal moveset is Counter, Dynamic Punch. As far as its ratings are concerned, we got a 5-star on the damage, a 2-star on the bulk. We're going to go ahead and give that an X. And then a 4-star on the consistency. So looking good overall. At level 35, it actually moves up a little bit. It has an overall ranking of 4th at level 35. And we're looking pretty good once again on the situations related to the different movesets. A lot of resistances involved with this as well. We're actually going to move into the number 6 position. I think that this is one that people are going to maybe not think about as much, and that is Heracross. So Heracross in this case, we're going to be using Counter and then Close Combat. The first Close Combat that we have seen on the list, it's just simply because Heracross does not have access to Dynamic Punch. It's not because the moveset is better or anything like that. As far as its ratings are concerned, we got a 4-star on the damage, a 2-star on the bulk, and then a 3-star on the consistency, so looking good so far. Once again, doing okay with all of the resistances as well. But hey, don't just take my word for it. Go ahead and check out some other simulations if you are interested in more alternative options.
Now for the bonus analysis you've all been waiting for. What special move do you want to use for Darkrai? Darkrai is a dark Pokemon, so normally you would want to go with double dark moves for that same type attack bonus. But in this case, Dark Pulse is not very good, while Shadow Ball is an excellent move. DPS-wise, Shadow Ball should be 4% faster, but there is a 1-second advantage on when the damage actually hits the boss. This means sometimes Shadow Ball won't actually land, while Dark Pulse will. These two effects seem to offset each other almost perfectly in the simulations. However, the simulations only show an average of 200 raids, which is obviously not enough in this case. There is way too much variation, so we decided to crank it up a notch and see what's really going on here. First, let's use a modified Pokebattler spreadsheet which is available for Pokebattler subscribers on Patreon or Stripe. We have simulated both Dark Pulse and Shadow Ball and have increased the number of sims from 200 to 1,000. Then we sort by time to win and plot both the points and the linear regression. The left side of the graph is the lucky part of the graph, showing raids where Darkrai did better than usual. The right side is the unlucky, showing those times when you did worse. The blue lines in data row show the results from Dark Pulse. The red lines in data show the row results from Shadow Ball. First, let's look at the trend lines, as it is easiest to understand. Shadow Ball starts better than Dark Pulse in the lucky situation, becomes even around the midway point, and then becomes worse as you become unlucky. This implies that Dark Pulse is more consistent, but Shadow Ball has a chance of getting luckier. Looking at the data table, you can see this confirmed, with Shadow Ball typically faster in lower percentiles and worse in the higher percentiles, with a higher standard of deviation and variance. Looking at the raw data points, you can see that they actually track each other quite closely, with a second or two advantage in the first 300 sims for Shadow Ball, and a second or two advantage from 500 to 700, and again from 950 to 1000 for Dark Pulse. Now, the previous graph was an analysis of the moves Alakazam has. The actual analysis will vary by move in hard-to-predict ways. Here is a quick analysis of what happens versus the easiest Alakazam move, Fire Punch. You can see on the left side of the graph that Shadow Ball has the advantage for the first 15% of the tries. Then there is an advantage to Dark Pulse for 80% of the tries, followed by a bunch of bad luck for both Dark Pulse and Shadow Ball that is worse for Dark Pulse. I guess we need more sims! Let's crank it up out of the realm of Google Sheets to 50,000 sims for each case, with some back-end modifications. And there you have it, folks. Shadow Ball and Dark Pulse are literally tied on time to win on average at 1:27.4 seconds. The median time is 0.9 seconds faster with Dark Pulse, but the chance to win, average power, TDO, potions, and overall rating are slightly better for Shadow Ball. One interesting effect is on the median result shown. Dark Pulse did quite a bit better than Shadow Ball on this first Mon. This is almost certainly just a random fluke in the simulations, but who knows. Now let's look at Fire Punch again. Here we see the same result as in the Google Sheet. Dark Pulse is faster on average. All the other stats seem to be similar, but the fact that deaths to win shows up means that there was at least one sim, but less than 25 where Dark Pulse actually lost. That tiny part of the graph on the far right that showed Dark Pulse having some very bad luck occasionally seems to be real. Interestingly, again, Dark Pulse in Slot 1 did quite a bit better than Shadow Ball. This is actually real. Now for the final slide. We finally find the source of the primary advantage Shadow Ball has over Dark Pulse in the Alakazam matchup. Focus Blast is a single bar move which makes the damage window speed advantage happen less frequently than the dual bar move. This on top of the higher variability of Shadow Ball adds up to winning without rejoining 5.5% of the time instead of 2.5% of the time, and that is without using any early join tricks. So, in summary, Dark Pulse is more reliable. Shadow Ball lets you win some of those really tough matchups. In the vast majority of cases, they are indistinguishable and can be used interchangeably. If you want to get really expensive, buy a second move. I suspect that using Shadow Ball when you are not close to death and Dark Pulse when you might get one-shotted is the highest DPS. But forget all that fancy analysis. Once again, Dark Pulse in Slot 1 did better than Shadow Ball. 3 median results I'm going to go with. This being a real spooky effect. Feel free to get superstitious and run Dark Pulse in Slot 1 and run Shadow Ball in Slot 2 and save those TMs for something better. I hope you enjoyed this Dark Raid's counters and bonus Dark Pulse versus Shadow Ball analysis. Make sure to like the video and share with your friends if you found it interesting. Subscribe to the channel for more raid guides and special analysis.